Just want to shoot some video in the rain, and just want to prove a point. This car is so damn controlled and has such good grip that even in the rain, I mean, you could drive it spiritedly and not really worry about, you know, flying off the road. Now, when I had my 2015 GT Performance Pack with all of the aftermarket components, that car in the rain was dangerous. And the reason for that is that when you start adding like the chassis stiffener braces, anything that eliminates any of the IRS articulation, or the braces that triangulate this rear subframe to the unibody, it just makes the car too stiff. And then when you're pushing it or you're going into a corner, the car can't load up. So what ends up happening is you just lose traction and you lose control. But you don't get that in this car. And like I said, I left this car stock for a reason, because it's so damn good. You would be nuts to actually want to mess around with it. I'm just driving home from work, and of course I have to go get fuel. so it's a typical thing. So today is my Tuesday refuel day. I filled up on Saturday, now I'm filling up again on Tuesday. I didn't go anywhere yesterday with this car. I took my other car. And I'm not using weather mode, like, you know, the snow, rain, and ice mode. I'm just not using that. I tend to not like that. In my 2015, whenever the weather was bad, I noticed that it would intervene a little bit too much with the throttle, especially in the winter, because I drove my 2015 through 3 very, very harsh winters in New York with the 19-inch wheels with Bridgestone Blizzak LM32s, and it was absolutely incredible. But I found out that using the weather mode really, really sucks when you're going uphill or if you break traction. So I just leave it in normal mode when the weather's bad. I mean, I don't really want to keep the exhaust going because I'm not going to really be able to beat on the car too much. And I'm going to do a hard panic stop in the rain just to show you the ABS intervention on this car and how damn good it is. Hold on. I mean, literally. It just shows you how good it is. Totally controlled. You know, and I'm getting on the car right there, and it's not fishtailing. It's not, you know, going sideways the way my 2015 GT Performance Pack was. And that's the problem with aftermarket. I mean, you know, you could bolt on a lot of these parts and they make the car handle better. Don't get me wrong, it'll handle better, it'll look better, it'll stop better because you're reducing, you know, the body motions with stiffer suspensions. But as soon as you start limiting the articulation in the suspension, especially in the rear IRS, on any car with an independent rear suspension, when the weather gets bad and things get slick, that's when things get dangerous. So that's something that I really, really love about this car, is that, I mean, you know, it was pouring out for the last hour. The roads are pretty slick, but the car is perfectly glued to the road still. No issues whatsoever. Traffic. Wonderful. See, it wanted to lose it right there, but it just didn't. I mean, there's just so much grip on this car that, you know, you could drive it a little bit aggressively in the rain. I mean, I don't know how it is in the snow. I haven't gotten there yet, but I'm sure we'll soon find out in the next 2 months, because I am going to drive this car in the snow. You guys will probably think bullshit, but you'll see. I'm going to figure out a set of wheels and tires, to put on here, and I'm going to drive this thing all year round. I didn't buy this car. I didn't pay 70 grand to have a Sunday driver or drive it when it's, you know, sunny out. Another thing on the 2015 GT Performance Pack, when it was wet or slick out, and if you were going, you know, between 30 to 60 miles an hour, any kind of a bumpy road, if there was any kind of, you know, turns or changes in direction that you were going, if the back of the car hit those bumps, a lot of times the car would slide out. Not slide out like 180 slide out, but it would skip enough that it would want to go into the next lane. And like I said, it used to make me really, really nervous. I remember like a couple of times I pushed that car and I ended up in the grass. I kid you not. And I'm a pretty good driver, but the back of that car was so damn stiff. And even with all the different configurations that I had on the car, no matter what I did, as soon as you start anchoring the rear subframe and you stop that from moving, as soon as you change the vertical links and the tow rods and all of that stuff to the stiffer, solid mounts, you're just eliminating the articulation of the IRS and the way this car was designed, and that's where the car becomes a little sketchy. So you got to be careful with that. Typical New York rush hour traffic. So I'm going to do a couple of these, like, you know, videos just driving around throughout the day. Like, I consider them like a vlog or whatever you want to call them, just so guys can get an idea of, you know, how I live with this car on a daily basis, you know, in rain, traffic, speeding around when I'm going north, whatever I'm doing. So it'll just be a good indicator as far as, you know, how daily drivable this car really is. And like I said, with the dual clutch in this car, it's a piece of cake. I mean, literally, this car is as easy to drive as a friend of mine had a brand new Honda Civic SI, and this is just as easy to drive in traffic as that. And that's what's great about this car. I mean, it doesn't lunge forward the way my GT Performance Pack did. I don't know, that car, no matter how I drove it, changing the clutch spring, changing the clutch, I just couldn't get that car in traffic to be smooth. No matter what I did, how I drove it, it was constantly jerking, constantly lurching forward. And in New York City, if you're not careful and the person in front of you stops short, you're gonna just lunge and crash right into them, and you know, of course, you're gonna be at fault. And usually when it's like a light drizzle like this, that's when the roads become the slickest. You know, when it rains heavy, you're actually better off as far as traction goes, that I found, unless you're raining to the point where it gets flooded and then you hydroplane. But this car, I haven't hydroplaned it yet, and I drove it in some pretty torrential downpours. But I mean, look, these roads are freaking destroyed. And you could probably hear in the audio, the car's tight. You don't hear any rattles, you don't hear any noises. That's because I fixed a lot of them. And stay tuned, because there's going to be a lot of videos on what I did to the door panels, what I did to the side panels. I posted a video on the shifter and a couple other things, but you guys will get a good gist of what I'm doing here with this car. Hard stop. See, I mean, it's incredible. The braking system in this car is so balanced. It's so neutral. You can modulate, you know, the pedal and the braking even with the ABS kicking in. I mean, it's absolutely awesome. I mean, it's not over braked, it's just perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And I think a lot of the braking performance, a lot of that's definitely coming from the wide contact patch, front and rear, because when you look at the tires, 295s in the front, 305s in the rear, you know, there's only a ½ inch difference in width between the front wheels and the rear wheels. Theoretically, you're almost running like a square setup, which a lot of guys like to run on a track, and I do as well. I mean, I like having a lot of meat in the front of cars, but some cars you can't really do that in, so you got to be careful. So you tried to break loose there, but it just doesn't lose it. It's absolutely awesome. I mean, I'm hitting all of these bumps and no rattles. So it gives you that tight, high quality, vault-like feel when you get into like a 911 Porsche. You know, like you get into a 911 Porsche, even a Porsche from 20 years ago or 30 years ago, I mean, they're tight. That's one of their, you know, things that they're famous for. They just have a very, very tight monocoque unibody design. They're super stiff. And, you know, you start with a stiff foundation, your suspension system could do its job with no compromises. The rain's picking up again. It says I have 33 miles till I run out of fuel, but the gauge says I have a quarter of a tank. So I think the indicator on this car kicks on a lot sooner than a lot of cars. And I think Ford, when they engineered this car, they knew that you were going to run out of gas. So they just want to forewarn you hours and days in advance so you don't get stuck on the side of the road. We're going to check my fuel indicator to see what's my fuel economy. Oh, I'm getting an average of 10.5. Wow. Yep, that's real good. I'm actually going to reset that. Like I said, stop and go traffic with a manual transmission, if you have a good car, it doesn't bother you at all. It really doesn't. If you have a bad car, a car that's got a lot of aftermarket stuff, or just a car that's real jumpy from the factory, you're going to hate it. You're going to hate driving that in New York. I'll tell you that now, because this scenario, this is 50% of the driving around here every day. And when I get a call to get the hell out of the office and go somewhere north to go see someone or pick something up, or you know, head somewhere to go do a job, to me that's my chance for freedom, to get away from all of this. See, this turn here is a really, really sharp turn, you know, with some elevation. And I've taken this turn in some cars that I've owned over the years, and I ended up on the other side of the divider. I kid you not. I remember the first time I lost control here was back in 1994. I was in an Acura Legend that we worked on for a customer, and I was driving it like an idiot. And took that turn a little bit too sharp, and I hit the divider, ended up on the other side. Scared the shit out of me. there's a lot of traffic tonight. As soon as it rains, everyone just panics around here. They panic. They slam on the brakes, they get into accidents, they don't know what they're doing. So guys, I just want to, like I said, I want to shoot this video. I mean, this is like me driving home, you know, raining in New York, stop and go traffic, slow moving traffic. Just showing you guys that the car is so controlled, it's comfortable, it's quiet, it's not making any crazy noises, there's no rattles, the car's not losing control. The ABS, I mean, it's just incredible the way this car stops. So, you know, if any of you guys own this car and you're, you know, paranoid to take it out in the bad weather, stop being like that. I mean, just, you pay for the car, you're paying every month for it, whatever you're doing, take the car out, drive it every day. I mean, this car is a special car. You may not ever have a chance to own a car like this again. So, I don't know, if I were you, if I'm an enthusiast, you want to drive this sucker as much as you can, because, you know, a couple of years from now, you may not have the car, you may switch to another car, and, you know, you're going to say, man, I really missed that GT350 I had back then. And I'll tell you one thing, this is a special car. Now the rain is picking up. As the rain picks up, everyone slows down. Oh, jeez. I mean, New York is not the only part of the country that has a lot of traffic and congestion. I mean, get it down in Florida every day. Los Angeles is an absolute nightmare. You know, Chicago could get pretty bad. So this is definitely going to be a different type of driving video compared to the other ones that I've done. I'm restraining myself, but no, I mean, it's to the point. Don't be stupid. When the weather's, you know, like this, you're not going to want to drive the car balls out, because you're just looking for trouble. And like I said, these bumps back there in the rain with my 2015 GT, the car would always kick over into the next lane. But look at this thing. I mean, I don't think it's just a magnetic ride control. I think it has a lot to do with the bushing durometers on this car, and whatever changes they made in the suspension versus the standard model. Now, another thing, when the weather is bad, I always leave the suspension in normal. You never want to have the car stiff in bad weather, because that's where you tend to lose control, and I think that's where the aftermarket can't really match up to what this car is by switching the modes of the dampening on the fly. Because, you know, with the aftermarket, you could set your car up to feel great on a nice warm summer day, and as soon as it rains, the car is so stiff you can't load up, you're not going to get the articulation in the IRS. You hit a turn in the rain, boom, you're on the grass. So, you know, that's just the nature of it, that's just the reality of it. So, you know, you buy a good car like this, and it's got the adjustability, you know, with all of the driving modes, suspension modes, exhaust modes. I mean, it really makes an otherwise impractical car quite practical for, you know, all year round, no matter where you live. So that's something that I really wanted to touch upon and mention, that is that, you know, always leave your suspension soft, you know, in the bad weather. You want the compression, you want everything, you know, to flow with the road. As soon as you make everything tight and rigid and you start hitting bumps, that's where the car starts losing control and the back of the end could kick out, and it's going to ruin your day. And on my 2015 GT Performance Pack, I mean, that car handled in the dry, it was incredible, but it still did not handle as good as this car in the dry. And in the rain, that car was scary. Let me tell you something, that car in the rain was really scary. I was not driving it as spirited and comfortable as I am now in this car. In the snow, when I drove the 2015 GT Performance Pack in the snow, I set the suspension to like full soft. It was almost like an OEM compliant ride. I raised the ride height up about 3/4 of an inch front and rear. And I changed the alignment settings a little bit just because, you know, when it's really cold out and there's a lot of snow and ice in the road, you're not going to, you know, want to beat on the car and drive it like a nut. I mean, sometimes I do, but visibility in this car is outstanding. That's another thing that I love about this car versus like the 2010, you know, the 5th gen and 6th gen Camaros. The visibility in this car is outstanding all the way around. No issues with blind spots, no issues with seeing anybody next to you. See, I just tried to break it loose right there and it wouldn't do it. Grip, grip, grip. Gonna end the video. Hope you got a good idea of how this car is in the rain, daily driving in New York. You understand what I was talking about with suspension and grip and everything else. And hope you have a good one. Stay tuned. There's going to be a lot more videos to come on this car. See, I mean, the traction didn't even kick in. And then we'll do a hard panic stop. I mean, look at that. Outstanding. So guys, I'll catch up with you guys soon. Any questions, comments, anyone's got concerns or wants any more info on driving this car in the rain or driving the S550 Mustang in the snow, post it below, man. See you later.